Good morning, everybody! We are here and so excited to be presenting the first Alpensee anniversary tournament on Champions, hosted, of course, and sponsored by Code-Centric AG. I am Costa, this is Marcus, and we are going to be bringing you all of the action. But before that being said, Marcus might be a bit more of a newer face to you lovely VGC folks. Just to give a quick breakdown, he's also known as Arceus Aurelius, famous Pokemon Go caster, 2024 Dortmund regional champion, and all-around fantastic guy. And there it is, he's got the medal to prove it.
Oh yes, and this is the most misplaced medal that the misplaced can be, because this is a Pokemon Go regional winners medal. And here we are doing VGC in Champions. I think I have a really exciting day ahead of me. Maybe you do too, Costa. You have no idea how much heavy lifting you will be doing.
Well, it's not going to be as much as you think, my friend, because you have also been a ongoer spectator with VGC. You've already been hopping into Pokemon Champions, talking a bit about the Mega Delphox Spice as well. So that may be the case of what we'll be able to witness today. But talking about the tournament itself, we've got fantastic prizes, a prize pool of €500 on the line.
And that is delivered by Code-Centric AG. And the pricing will be cut into, so the winner will take on €150. Second place finisher, you're not going home empty-handed either. €100 for second place. Third and fourth, €50. And fifth to eighth get €25 each. But it's not just a Swiss rounds that we're doing here. Yes, there is Swiss rounds, but we are also doing a top cut. So we get 7 rounds of Swiss, and then heading into a top 32 for the top cut.
Yeah, which is a great way to be able to round everything down, because we have got a max cap of 128 trainers. Now, registrations were far above that, which is fantastic to see, but unfortunately, this is limited given the circumstances of the tournament, making sure that we have things going fluidly well, and of course, with the prize pool available, make sure that no one's missing out. And now, talking about the trainers themselves, we've got a couple of featured players that will be taking part today, and we've got a couple of high-level names as Victor Medina, so Torviv, we've got Marcus Hamann, we've got Stefan Marks, we've got Nikolai and Frederick Hoy Nielsen, and quite a few more.
My favorites.
They have to be. They're just fantastic. Hey, and I'm bringing the Blood Moon to represent as well for them.
I mean, the Danish Dynamite is obviously, as a Norwegian myself, we have like that brotherly competition going between us, but when anyone else is up against my brothers, then, I mean, I'm in their court. So the Hoy Nielsens, those are my, they have, how do you say, I put my stakes in the game on them. If I have any stakes in the game, it's on them. Well, I don't know how to say it, but I'm rooting for them. For them.
100%. And, you know, it's like you said, now they're bringing it to the fore as well. There are a couple of other trainers we've got from other regions too. We've got Simone Sanvito, so Sanvi from Italy. Potentially Marco Fiera. We're going to have to see because if he's actually been able to check in or not, we shall find out. But then, of course, we've got none other than Francesco Pardini. It's going to be amazing to be able to see him rock out with all of the previous experience, veteran-like knowledge into the current format. Now with Mega Evolutions, which champions, if you're not aware, regulation MA.
Incredible day ahead of us for sure. So we will play open team sheet. This has been coming through the Scarlet Violet era, but for seasoned VGC players, maybe hoping to get back to closed team sheet, that is not what we're doing today. This will be open team sheets, move sets, and no Terra obviously, but items as well. So you know which Pokemon will be able to Mega, for example. And but yeah, no Terras obviously, and so. If you're tired of playing against Terra Water, Terra Bug, or Terra Ghost Incineroar, today is just a regular old Incineroar for you guys.
Yeah, and a nerfed one as well, because it no longer gets knockoff. It no longer has the Assault Vest available as an item too. And if I'm not mistaken, there may have been another nerf with it. But regardless, like
it lost U-turn. It lost U-turn.
U-turn.
So
Thank you, Marcus. That's it. So yeah, but then again, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be used because there's a lot of room for a format that has a lower power threshold. But we've got our first trainers, first round as well.
Boy.
It's going to be between, none other than Selahattin Sturm on the left-hand side, and we've got Victor Medina on the right. We've got a LAIC 2025 finalist in Victor, of course, let's not forget.
I'm just going to point out immediately, and I don't know if you watchers noticed on my pin, I had an Aerodactyl, and we see it immediately from Sela. The Aerodactyl rocking that Focus Sash and Tailwind to boost up its team speed. I've seen Aerodactyl both as a supporter with Wide Guard, Tailwind, and Rock Slide usually for damage, but here it seems like a more offensive set with dual Wing Beat, maybe to get around that annoying Sneasler with Focus Sash, and then also Rock Slide to hit. Stuff super effectively. Mega Floette, Floette Eternal on Sela's side. I think we are looking for a great game here. Going for that Darkest Lariat over Throat Chop on Incineroar, and we're already going into game one. We see Floette and King Gambit from Sela, and Pelipper and Gengar from Victor.
Yeah, exactly, and we've already got a situation where the poison typing over on Victor's side is actually quite solid going into the Mega Floette because it's not a Perish Son variant. It's got the Sludge Bomb available. However, there is also the setup potential from Floette that needs to be respected. But the thing that Victor's done really well here is that he's presented a way to have a support in that form of Pelipper, maybe to be able to deter a potential Sinistra with the offensive flying types.
So, yeah, we see here trainers are taking their time locking in their moves. But the Gengar will not be able to hit the Floette here because the King Gambit will cover it with its access to Sucker Punch. And here we see the Mega coming in from Gengar. Has the King Gambit gone for the Sucker Punch and will knock out the Gengar, or is Victor ready for that? How will this turn? Okay, we see Floette Megaing as well.
Yeah, and
understood.
Understandable as well, and now that we know that the patch is in, the Mega Evolution speeds are in correct order at the moment, but Gengar going for the substitute, so like you were mentioning, Marcus, wanting to avoid the Sucker Punch, which King Gambit did not opt to go for the Floette, actually going for the setup in its own form. Now, Calm Mind means it's got +1 in special attack as well as special defense is going to be hitting like a truck soon afterwards. However, Weather Ball into the King Gambit. King Gambit is able to tank it, but at the cost of having 60 hit points remaining as Pelipper. We know Pelipper is so powerful in its physical bulk. However, the black glasses on the King Gambit allows to deal so much damage.
A very fun turn from both of these trainers. Victor playing very cleverly with his Gengar, and now is behind a substitute that will let Gengar, no matter what happens, get off a potential Sludge Bomb into that Mega Floette. So Sela has a choice to make whether they can get around this Gengar play. Went for the Calm Mind in turn 1 to boost up their Floette, but maybe expecting a switch from that Mega Gengar.
Yeah, and Gengar now being in the spot where it can just go for the damage, but it's not going to be able to pick up that one shot if it really needs to do so against the Floette, as the Pelipper actually opting in for the Wide Guard, wanting to make sure that there is no Dazzling Gleam spread damage being dealt, as the Sucker Punch is going to be able to take down the substitute on the Gengar, giving us an indication that Gengar is going on the offensive. It goes into the Floette with the Sludge Bomb, just barely confirming the 50%, and the D-Gleam is blocked. So well played with the Wide Guard from the Pele.
And nice play from the Gengar too, knowing that it needs damage into the Floette. But look at that bulky Floette. With this incredible special bulk and the Calm Mind up, a super effective Sludge Bomb from Mega Gengar, not even doing 50%. The Floette will be able to take another Sludge Bomb, most likely. Unless, of course, it gets a critical hit. But here, now we will see Torviv be in a kind of a peculiar situation. Yes, he can put up another substitute, but will the King Gambit expect it and go for a kowtow cleave? Oh, the Gengar goes for a sludge bomb and it goes through all of them, but the Floette does hang on!
And there's no sucker punch from the King Gambit to be able to stop it, and the poison comes out from the Floette itself, which means it's going to be going down at the end of this turn, as the Pelipper will see to getting felled before then. Critical hit, I don't think it mattered at all, given how much damage it dealt, but the King Gambit now picks up the KO onto the Gengar, but at what cost? The sucker punch would have avoided the Floette from going down to this poison.
And it seems obvious for Sela to go for that sucker punch, but if Torviv puts up a substitute, then that turn would be incredibly bad for Sela. And that is why they went for the safe and secure kowtow cleave into that Gengar. The upside was higher because now Sela is up 3 Pokemon 2-2.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's really about board position and management of your pieces, really. And in that scenario, I feel like there were obviously mind games, right, Marcus, with the sucker punch or not. Do you go for the substitute since you got enough space? But at that point, you kind of need to make the call for if you're Sela, because right now, Victor just has a lot of momentum going for himself. However, there is a Sinister that's been brought. So 2 versus 2 and a Defiant proc on Sela's side. Now, rather than having -1 in its attack, it's got +1 due to the Defiant ability.
And the King Gambit is now quite... it is healed up by the hospitality from Sinisha. Sinisha maybe not able to provide the damage that you would want in this situation, but it keeps the King Gambit healthy. And this +1 King Gambit, it can really get running, but there's no ways to hit either the Incineroar or the imposing King Gambit on the Torviv side. No low kick. It's a kowtow cleave, sucker punch, and Iron Head set from Sela.
Yeah, and that's sort of the weird interaction that we're running down towards, because Torviv just needs to try to go ahead, get a fake out available, basically ignore the Sinister for now, and get the Swords Dance going. You want to be able to out-damage Sela's side of the field in order to make sure that you can pick up the KO, because you already know the Sinister is going to go for the Life Dew, as we've seen it right now, in order to be able to further assist the King Gambit, which, at this point, Sela's King Gambit does not have a Swords Dance available to itself, but not even going for the Swords Dance, Torviv wants to make sure he gets rid of the Sinister in order to sort of force this King Gambit on Sela to start losing resources and damage, even though there's rain still available on the field.
And now here comes Incineroar King Gambit. We have a stalemate on these sides of the field. And very fitting, given that King Gambit are 2 of the Pokemon in this stalemate. Now, both King Gambits are +1 in their attack stats, but as you mentioned, Torviv has that opportunity to go for the Swords Dance. Ironhead does not provide any value for Sela in this situation. Kowtow Cleave will be the move that does most damage, but now Sela has the opportunity to fake out the opposing King Gambit for a turn and is looking to do some damage, but this might be a slightly drawn-out endgame.
Yeah, and the speed interactions are going to be so key here. So Sela's King Gambit does move first, deals respectable amount of damage onto Torviv's, as the Incineroar moved after Sela's King Gambit. Something very crucial that we need to pay attention to, as the King Gambit on Torviv's side is now at +3 of its attack thanks to the Swords Dance.
And there's no point in parting shotting this King Gambit that would even boost it even further. There's no way for Sela to lower this King Gambit's damage output in any way, except for Flare blitzing it and getting rid of it as soon as they can. So right now, I would say, given that we're basically at a health equality, I think Torviv's King Gambit is looking so strong because of that Swords Dance set over that Iron Head.
Yeah, and that's essentially what we're saying. In an Ultra situation, when you have essentially not very effective moves on either side, you need to make sure that you're just getting as much damage potential as possible. But both Incineroars actually have Flare Blitz available, which is sort of why both of our trainers are going for Protect with their King Gambits to make sure that they don't get felled before they need to in order to deal the necessary damage. And that's exactly what both of our trainers are doing, mirroring one another. And it does come down to the speeds as well and potential damage potential, as Sela's Incin is faster.
And Sela has seemed to win both speed ties so far. So if Sela can get rid of the opposing King Gambit, and we see the Sucker Punch going into the King Gambit, does a lot of damage here, but will it be enough? Oh, another Sucker Punch, but into the Incineroar. This does a tremendous amount of damage.
Yeah, but the Flare Blitz going into Torviv's King Gambit does mean it is picking up the KO because it was put within range of the Sucker Punch. Sela knew that he had the speed advantage. With his King Gambit, he can afford to go for the priority Sucker Punch into Torviv's and make sure that that gets within range of getting felled. But Torviv not able to get rid of this King Gambit, and this is looking incredibly difficult for him.
And now, though, the Incineroar on Sela's side is so low, while Torviv's Incineroar is a lot healthier. I think going for Darkest Lariat probably is Sela's best option right now, because you don't want to take that Flare Blitz recoil, putting yourself potentially in range for Torviv's Incineroar. I assume Sucker Punch coming out from the +1 King Gambit on Sela's side to get this Incineroar as low as possible, unless the King Gambit on Sela's side is faster than Torviv's Incineroar. And we have seen that already, Costa. Who will win that speed time?
Yeah, I think it definitely the King Gambit based off of the look of it, but I was going to suggest that the King Gambit, there's no reason for it not to go for Protect here, because you know that your Incineroar is faster. You want to chip Torviv's down as much as possible to put it within range where you could still capitalize off of the +1 in thanks to the Defiant boost with that King Gambit. That's exactly what we're seeing. So Torviv having to play true to himself, focus down on the King Gambit, but getting caught out there by Sela's very foresight-based move there.
Very good insight, Costa. I think you seem to be a very experienced both caster and a player. And both of these... I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. But it is a tough position for Torviv here, because the King Gambit is faster than the Incineroar, and the Kowtow Cleave does so much damage. And here comes Sela's Darkest Lariat as well. How much can it do? It takes it down to 47%. Now, the Incineroar needs to Flare Blitz the King Gambit to get rid of it as well. Will take recoil and is slower. This is looking very good for Sela. But here is a knockout on that King Gambit. Torviv trying to claw back. Oh, but it's so low. It's so low.
Yeah, it's so low, and it's going to really come down to the wire. I think Sela should have this, right? Because the Throat Chop dealt about 20-ish damage there, but maybe try to go for the Flare Blitz here to guarantee it, and he does. Sela has been able to pick up Game 1 in what has to have been the longest set of champions I have been able to notice just from one individual game.
Because I've been surprised by how quick the games and champions have been. But this was a drawn-out game. In the final position, there was two dark types facing off against each other. Yes, the King Gambit, it could be removed with a Flare Blitz, and it was. And I think when Sela did Sucker Punch the opposing King Gambit, and then immediately Flare Blitzed it with Incineroar, I thought, wasn't that a waste of a Sucker Punch? Because the Flare Blitz would knock it out anyway. Probably not. And this is what Sela did so well, that we saw Torviv not be able to knock out the opposing King Gambit with a single Flare Blitz. So Sela managed to get rid of that +3 King Gambit in one turn. And I think that sealed it for him.
Yeah, and it was a lot of back and forth, like you mentioned there, Marcus, as well, between both of our trainers. Torviv trying to focus down on the signature as well the moment that it came in. But the fact that the King Gambit was set up to the point where it was faster. It was actually faster than, Sela's King Gambit was faster than his own Incineroar, the fastest thing on the field between those 4 Pokemon during the end game. So that's something that is going to be very important and crucial that Torviv is now going to have to go back, evaluate, and say, okay, well, I clearly can't win that speed tie interaction there. I need to come up with something better in terms of this end game. So, Marcus, what are your thoughts for Victor? Does he go and adapt substantially? Does he bring the same and maybe just try to change up a couple of moves?
I think the Como is looking pretty good for Torviv in that endgame. If he can get rid of that Floette, which obviously would be detrimental to be facing up against for that Como, then Como would be great. But the same goes for the Sneasler. Sneasler is really scared of that Mega Gengar, but it would be really good into the Incineroar King Gambit. So here we see an adjustment from Victor. No Pelipper this time. It's the Incineroar and Gengar versus King Gambit, getting a Defiant boost and that Eternal Floette.
Yeah, so a couple of wins for either side, really. Torviv having the Fake Out potential available, then he could have the easy substitute if he so wanted to, but it's at the cost of Sela getting one of his Pokemon to essentially get a really crucial action going for this turn. Either the Floette goes for the Calm Mind boost, or we have the King Gambit just going for the raw damage. So if you're Torviv, you're going to have to take your pick where the Fake Out's going.
I think Torviv needs to... Oh, that's a great question. To me, I think the Gengar is... I mean, that's what you have to protect here. And we see Sela being aware of the Gengar being so scary. It swaps out the Floette. Here comes the Mega Gengar. And this Sneasler, it will threaten the Incineroar, but it will not threaten this Gengar at all because it only has Dire Claw and Close Combat.
Oh, okay, and we've got the King Gambit opting to go for Protect here, so a very safe turn from Sela. He doesn't want to risk things. He's got the game 1 advantage, and he knows that Torviv has a lot of pressure on his side of the field and needs to go on the offensive. But even though Sneasler was able to resist that poison move, it got dealt a lot of damage from the Sludge Bomb. So now we've got a scenario where Sneasler is going to be slower than the Mega Gengar, most likely, but it may be able to threaten a one-shot on the Incineroar, as the Incineroar is Sugar Berry rather than Chopple.
I think this is a perfect sandwich for Sela, because Sela has that Sucker Punch threat on the Mega Gengar to take it out before Mega Gengar can move, and that will allow the Sneasler to outpace the Incineroar. I think this turn is pretty straightforward for Sela, but here we see the Mega Gengar getting up a substitute. No Sucker Punch from King Gambit, reading a substitute Aura Switch.
Marcus, I'm loving this play from Sela because Close Combat, actually, it's not even enough to pick up the KO onto the Incineroar. It may not have enough training, or likewise, the Incineroar might have a bit too much training for the Sneasler to be able to guarantee that damage. Kowtow Cleave slices through the Incineroar, outpaces it, gets rid of it from this game, and actually noted King Gambit, A, didn't go for the Sucker Punch into the Gengar there in order to be able to threaten it, but also B, Sela had that identification of knowing the Incineroar was a big threat for the King Gambit. He needs to get rid of it to allow it to essentially navigate the rest of the game.
And here we see the Como, and this is now looking like a good position for Torviv, because there is no Floette on the field. Gengar is behind a substitute. King Gambit has no way of getting rid of that substitute without being exposed to an Aura Sphere from that from the Como. So this is now looking like a perfect pin from Torviv, because the Incineroar managed to hang on through that close combat and then direct the Kowtow Cleave into the Incineroar. That means the substitute is now so good for this Gengar. I think Torviv is in a really, really good position here.
I think he is as well. There are a couple of things that you need to factor in with that Floette endgame, which would cause you so much issues. So Sela just needs to make sure he gets rid of the Gengar, he preserves the Floette, and Torviv, on the other hand, needs to make sure that he has the Gengar available for the Floette. So that's sort of why we see 3 protects coming up from 3 different Pokemon there in order to sort of scout out what your opponent's going to do and not disrupt your own piece of board flow with the very important Pokemon that you need to preserve.
I need to mention that the Kingambit actually went for the Sucker Punch, trying to get rid of that substitute.
Yes.
So the Kingambit is actually was vulnerable to an Aura Sphere from the Como. Sneasler going for that close combat into the Como wants to get rid of it, but there is the opportunity. I think Sela needs to get rid of that substitute, and he knows. But is he willing to sacrifice his Kingambit to get rid of that substitute? It seems so. But now we see a protect from Kingambit. This could be a very clever play from Sela, because here comes the close combat. The unburdened Sneasler, now the fastest thing on the field. Como does hang on, but Gengar now able to act.
Oh, Shadow Ball's going straight into the Sneasler. It will pick up the KO because of the special defense drop due to the close combat. White Herb procced once. It could not proc a second time. And the Como, it goes for the setup. Klein Grisol will be able to give itself +1 across all stages at the cost of its HP. Now being brought down to 23 hit points at the end of the turn. But the biggest issue for Torviv is the Floette. Most likely going to be able to come in, but the Gengar is in prime position, Marcus.
Oh, and here we see the Sinisha coming in. Maybe that might be able to keep the Kingambit. Well, I think the Sinisha needs to hang on through a Shadow Ball from Mega Gengar to keep the Kingambit alive, awakened, not to keep it from fainting. And that is the goal for Sela, is to get rid of the substitute on the Gengar, and then. But how do you deal with it without the Kingambit? I don't think it's possible. The Gengar is looking so strong for Torviv in this position, as long as he can protect it from the Kingambit.
I think setting up Trick Room with the Sinistcha and wanting to go for a Floette sweep under Trick Room conditions might be an option for Sela, given how fast Torviv's Pokemon are at this point as well. And maybe catch out a Protect from this Como, which we actually do see. Sucker Punch trying to go for the Gengar in that spot. Actually, no, he was going for the Como. He wanted to guarantee damage before potentially getting KO'd, but Shadow Ball is not enough to pick off this Sinistcha. Gengar is being such a shadow menace, proccing the Citrus Berry on the Sinistcha, but the Trick Room is now in play, Marcus.
And this turn, going exactly as expected, except for the Sinistcha hanging on from a Shadow Ball, from Mega Gengar. This Sinistcha is trained perfectly for Sela's utility. He needed that exact interaction to happen, because the Trick Room now is looking so good for Sela. If Sela can get rid of that Gengar, then the Floette looks to be so tough to stop.
Yeah, and I think there could have been an interaction there where Torviv was hoping that the Shadow Ball would be able to pick up the KO or put it within range, and maybe not opting to go for the planning scales to proc a Citrus Berry potentially. But I think that would have been the play to guarantee the Sinistcha not setting Trick Room up and getting KO'd even with that interaction, because this allows Sela to have flinch potentials going, but even before then, just picking up the KO most crucially, because we had the boost, the defined boost earlier on, and the range that the Como was put in, it just allows the Kingambit to do what it wants, and the sub is still in play.
But now look at that. Como was on the field for so long, even against the opposing Kingambit, but never clicked Aura Sphere. Mega Gengar taking out the Sinistcha, but this Kingambit, not a single time did Torviv go for that Aura Sphere into the Kingambit. What's Torviv's plan to get rid of it now? Because with a Trick Room up, it will be the fastest thing on the field. It resists all of Gengar's moves. And the Mega Floette, as we know, is one of the strongest Pokemon in this meta. And Torviv does not have great ways to hit it except for that Sludge Bomb from Gengar. But then he needs to get rid of the Kingambit.
Yeah, it's a bit of an awkward scenario. We've got 3 turns of Trick Room remaining as well, and Torviv's King Gambit does not have access to a steel type move. It's just got the Black Glasses, Kowtow, Cleave, Sucker Punch, Swords Dance set going for itself. So you need to be able to essentially allow Gengar enough room to pick up a KO on the Floette, but then Sela could also factor in even a Calm Mind setup here in order to guarantee some KOs in the subsequent turns, as long as his own King Gambit is able to break the sub on that Gengar. Finally, it's had it all game long.
But there is a Sela can guaranteed go for Sucker Punch into that Gengar and be sure to get rid of that substitute and let the Floette attack. So I think Sucker Punches from the here we see the protect coming in from the Gengar, wanting to protect it from the Sucker Punches, because if you can deny the King Gambit the PP and make King Gambit spend all the PP on Sucker Punch, it might be he can win. But Sela ignoring the Gengar completely here with what it was protecting. Now that lets him put a lot of pressure into that opposing King Gambit. Look at how low this King Gambit now is.
Yeah, this is exactly what Sela wanted to do. The Gengar, it's not going to be able to win a 1v1 versus the King Gambit. So Sela correctly identifying Torviv's King Gambit is the main issue here. Sure, you can go ahead and deal spread damage with Dazzling Gleam. It'll break the substitute since it took damage in previous turns, and because of how powerful Mega Floette is. But at this point, this is just looking very hard for Torviv to be able to come back from, Marcus.
Sela has played this perfectly, navigated so well, disrespecting the Aura Sphere from Como, leaving the King Gambit on the field for so many turns. Still, the King Gambit is here. I think Torviv, when probably made it a slight misplay when he let the Trick Room go up, not clicking clanging scales with Como or getting rid of the King Gambit with the Aura Sphere. That put the King Gambit in such a strong position. Here we see the Floette getting some damage into the Gengar and Sludge Bomb coming out, but probably not enough to knock out the Floette. No. And now, how will this turn play out? Because we know the King Gambit on Torviv's side is the fastest of the 2 King Gambits in Trick Room. We saw it was slower than Sela's King Gambit in game number 1. So maybe Sela needs to get rid of, well, both of his opponent's Pokemon, obviously. But the way to do it is, here comes the Sucker Punch going into the Floette and then knocks out the Floette. Incredible play by Torviv here.
Yeah, it's enough to pick up the KO. Kowtow Cleave follows suit, picks up the KO onto the King Gambit as well. And what would you know? We got a scenario where it's the Gengar 1v1 against its King Gambit. Shadow Ball could even get a special defense drop, and it does. Just to put more salt in the wound that the King Gambit is even more powerful now. Sure, there's a case where the Shadow Ball crit maybe could put it within range, but I personally don't think so, because King Gambit, it's just very bulky, and it's got that beautiful dark type to resist it.
But now the Twisted Dimensions are returned to normal. No Sucker Punch from King Gambit. And the Gengar does not do enough. If there is a Kowtow Cleave coming out here, this will seal up the game. And Sela seals up game number 2 as well, taking round number 1, 2-0 against Victor Medina, LAIC runner-up. Sela putting on an incredible show with his fearless play with his King Gambit.
Yeah, and clearly a true Incineroar admirer there, being able to hone in on both its advantages and disadvantages. But oh my lord, there's so much to break down there, Marcus. I think just given the fact that there's so many back and forths was amazing between both of our trainers, because like you said, even though it's a 2-0 win, it was very, very close. And we got situations where there was Shadow Tag always on the field from Gengar's side, should I say Victor's side with the Gengar. There was the Sinister that could have been trying to do some hard switches and stuff because of its Ghost type. It can ignore that, but it didn't need to. It needed to set up the Trick Room. It needed to make sure that it sets up success for the King Gambit and the Floette in that end game. And in particular, that moment that we saw the Coma O it opted to not go on the offensive. We know that it was Omni boosted, right? It had +1 in its defense. The King Gambit over on Sela's side was at +1 at the time as well because of the Defiant boost from turn 1. So there, and the Komo-O was very low in HP. So I feel like Torviv thought, okay, there's no way my Komo-O is going to be able to survive the Sucker Punch, and that's why he opted to go for the Protect there rather than the offensive, but it could have been close. It could have been some sort of calc.
Because the Como was healthier at that point because of the Clangorous Soul that that Torviv went for when the Sinishop set up Trick Room. That costs you a third of your HP, putting the Como into Sucker Punch range. I think the Como, given that it was around 50% HP, maybe could have hung on through a Sucker Punch. Maybe not. Maybe I'm a bit ambitious because of the +1 and the black classes. So it could have been a clever play because the Sucker Punch did fail, but it did also let that Sinisha set up the Trick Room. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the calc and how Torviv's Como is trained. But if the Como was going down that turn anyway, then probably no way around it. It's a tough situation because you need to get rid of the King Gambit somehow, and the Incineroar did not manage to do it. It went down to close combat and counter cleave, and the Como did not click Aura Sphere a single time, threatening the King Gambit. So it was a tough position for Torviv when he did not manage to get rid of the King Gambit on Sela's side.
Yeah, and that's sort of how the cookie crumbles, as one would say, with this new Mega Evolution format on Champions. It was such an amazing first round for us to kick off this stream and tournament, where we had, of course, Salahatin Sturm, one of the Alpensee members as well, get a very, very valuable win against one of the most prolific VGC players out there. So, what we're going to do is we're going to cut to a very, very short break before we are back for more action. So make sure you go ahead and get your refreshments, and we'll be right back.